According to a new FBI report that was out this week, anti-Semitic incidents are on the rise across the U.S.
But as NBC News correspondent Jesse Kirch will just show you in a moment, this is really nothing new. We do want to warn you, though, that some of the language and the images are disturbing.
6 injured, and it never really went away. When 6 million Jews were killed in the Holocaust, the world vowed never again.
Jews will not replace us!
But now, instead of festering in the shadows, genocidal lies are moving closer to the American mainstream, from a Los Angeles highway to an alleged threat to a New York
There is no room in the Republican Party for anti-Semitism or white supremacy.
Corporations are also under scrutiny. Kyrie Irving was benched 8 games for spreading what the NBA commissioner called deeply offensive anti-Semitic material. But it took Nike more than a month to cut ties with him. Adidas dropped the rapper formerly known as Kanye West, but that shoe brand has its own historical ties to Nazi Germany, noticeably not mentioned on its website history page. These moments make headlines, but there have been many more. The Anti-Defamation League says there were 2,717 anti-Semitic incidents in this country last year alone, including assaults, which hit a record high for the past 40-plus years, as the federal government warns of an enduring threat to Jewish Americans.
The problem of anti-Semitism and anti-Jewish attitude is not one that is of recent discovery. We look at incidents such as the Holocaust, and without understanding the context of the Jewish heritage ethnically and traditionally, you can look at an act of persecution and genocide like that and not really completely understand the entire scope of the event itself. The truth of the matter is that the Holocaust is one of many acts of persecution that the Jews and the Jewish people have experienced over the last 4,000 to 5,000 years. And so it begs the question, how did we get here? I'm gonna pull up some pictures for you guys and show you some modern examples of what we're dealing with so that we can really see that this is still a significant issue even in the 21st century. This first picture to your left depicts a man holding a sign, and the sign says, Google it, Jews control America. A common thing that we're gonna see in this series as we uncover the root causes of anti-Semitism is that the Jews have been blamed for every issue in society, going all the way back to the biblical days. Politically, socially, and economically, otherwise, the Jews have always been the scapegoat in every society where we've seen acts of persecution happen. Jews have been the scapegoat for all of the society's problems. If we take the late example of the most horrendous genocide that happened in the 20th century, the Holocaust, Adolf Hitler mobilized his base on the premise that the Jews were the reason why they were in economic despair. Whether it be true or not, and in that case it wasn't true, Germany was coming off of the defeat from World War I, and the world was experiencing a depression economically across the entire world, even the United States. And so some places felt it worse than others, but that was a key way that Adolf Hitler was able to rein in the power that he had and able to mobilize the base and ultimately able to acquire the willingness and the acquiesce of so many people to have this anti-Jewish sentiment in Germany. Moral of the story, Jews have always continuously been the scapegoat for people in society, for all of their issues and problems. This second picture, down to the right, we see a picture depicting a sign that says Christians only, Jews are not allowed. This intersection between Christianity and Judaism is very important as we look at understanding the anti-Semitic sentiment that we see in the world today. We know that Judaism is the oldest religion, starting approximately 5,000 years ago with Abraham. Abraham received a covenant from God, and we know that Judaism is the oldest religion. But being Christianity growing out of Judaism and the differences theologically with the belief that Jesus was the Messiah. Christians believe that Jesus was the Messiah, the Son of God himself, God here on earth himself. And then you have the Jews who believe that Jesus was not who he said he was. They did not believe, and they do not still to this day, do not, with the exception of different sects, if you look at, the Messianic Jews, but primarily if you're an Orthodox Jew, the traditional belief is that Jesus was a prophet. He was not the Messiah. And so the Jews are placed in an interesting context in this controversy, as a lot of blame for the crucifixion of Jesus Christ is put on the Jews. And so you look at that with this intersection between the Christians and the Jews. Obviously, if your God is Jesus Christ, you do feel some kind of way if this other group is responsible for the death of your God. So that intersection between the two faiths is very interesting. That's something that we're going to cover more in depth later down the line in the series. And then this last picture depicting a statement on a post saying it's okay to be anti-Semitic. It's very interesting to have just a post out there for the public view with the statement that it's okay to be anti-Semitic. And so that's another common thing that we've seen throughout history, that there's this acquiesce, this willingness from people to have these very anti-Semitic remarks, and not really question those remarks, very much rolling with the notions of the principalities that were ruling. You look at the Roman Empire, for example, the different emperors, the sentiment that the different emperors had really kind of prevailed throughout the society. You might have had one emperor who was accepting of the Jews, and so society was accepting, and then you had another emperor who did not feel that same sentiment, and so the attitudes kind of changed with the different princes that were presiding over the principalities throughout time. So I hope that I've provided a great introduction to this series for you guys. First place that we have to get to, as I mentioned before, is we have to understand the Jewish ethnic beginnings and the Jewish tradition beginnings. We have to go back to the covenant that Abraham received from God. We have to look at the 12 tribes and the descendants of Abraham, and we have to understand that entire scope before we can move into the first act of persecution that actually took place in Egypt. And if you guys are anything familiar with the story of Moses and the Prince of Egypt, basically Moses was called to lead his people out of Egypt, out of bondage, out of slavery. And that's a whole story. We'll get into that once we talk about the first act of persecution. But coming up next for the second episode, however you like to look at it, We're going to be getting started with the Jewish beginnings and understanding the ethnic and traditional religious background and foundations that the faith is built upon. So having said so, thank you guys so much for tuning into this video. Again, my name is Joseph, and until the next time, I'm out. Peace.